What's up, guys? My name is Crescent, and I'm excited to have a special guest with me today. Her name is Michelle. She's the Vice President of GS1 US. And if you're wondering why that sounds familiar, it's because that's the organization from which you buy official GS1 UPC barcodes from. Now, I'm excited to have Michelle here with me today because barcode seems to be a pretty common problem area for most people that are just starting out on Amazon. And I invited her here on my channel so we can cover a lot of these common problems and questions. And instead of listening to my voice, we can get answers straight from the source. And Michelle also has some exciting news and updates that she'd like to share with all of you too. So welcome, Michelle. Thank you for joining me on my channel today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So yeah, I'm thinking, why don't we start off with some of the news and updates that you want to share with everybody? And then I actually have a lot of questions that I want to ask you, as well as questions I pulled with my community that they want answers from too. So
Sure. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. I am really happy to be able to share some news with you and your community. I think for a long time, we've heard a lot of our members or the selling community say that to get a GS1 barcode is really expensive. And so what GS1 US has done is we've really tried to listen to our members and create offerings that really help tailor to those small sellers that are just getting started out. So we have had the offering out since November, but a lot of people still aren't aware. So I thought maybe we could share a little bit of news with you and your community today. GS1 US has a single GTIN offering now. And I can talk you through what that means, but for many years, we've offered the ability for sellers to get bundled GTINs, and they were seemingly cost prohibitive to our community at $250 for just 10 with a renewal fee. So we really listened to our members and said, just give us something that we can start out with. So we rolled out our single GTIN offering. It's $30 per GTIN. It gives the member all of the benefits that a GS1 barcode provides. It gets registered into our the GS1 database, where many retailers, marketplaces use for validation. So it is an authentic issued GTIN. It associates that seller, that brand name, to the actual GTIN, and it provides hopefully easy access to that barcode without an annual fee. So that is what we've been offering, and we're really excited. Hopefully this helps a lot of sellers now.
yeah, definitely. That's one big complaint that a lot of beginners have too, that the original purchase price was so high and it was cost prohibitive. So I think that's what turned a lot of people to buy from third-party resellers, which we can discuss later on in the Q&A session.
So do you want me to just show real quick how a seller can get a barcode?
Yeah, why don't you go through that process so people can see how easy it is to buy these single GTINs?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So this is the GS1US.org website. So there are many GS1 member organizations. So if you type in GS1US.org, it will take you to our homepage. And on our homepage, we've changed it slightly in the last couple of weeks, but from the very start, you could say, here's how you could get either your GTINs or UPC barcodes from GS1. On this homepage, we put it right here on the first page. Do you want a start small with just the GS1 US GTIN, or do you need that company prefix? Now that's the prefix is that bundled offering where a seller could get 10, 100,000, get a capacity-based identifier that they can enumerate their GTINs. But just for that single GTIN, you could click right here, need a few barcodes, and what it does, it takes you directly into the application for that single GTIN. We do ask for a couple of pieces of information, and so I'll describe that process real quick, and then everything else is a traditional e-commerce kind of experience. We do ask for two fields, the brand name and the product description. We give you a little hover over to tell you what is that brand name. So the brand name is the brand name associated to the product. It is not your company name, but the brand. So let's say my company is Michelle's Cookies LLC, but my brand is Crunchy Cookies. And so that would be what I put here. And in the product description, again, to create a robust product description, we give the guidance of sellers to enter the brand name, the type of the product, product variation, and net contents. So for example, following that crunchy cookies, we would then also put in the crunchy cookies, and then we'd say they're chocolate chip. It would be a 4-pack. I don't know, that's probably what, 8 ounces? I don't know. And so that would be a robust product description. And then from there, they would just add it to their cart. And then you'll also notice as part of the offering, we do offer access to the GS1 Data Hub location and product tool, because as the seller comes to us and license that GTIN, they will also get access into that Data Hub tool, where they can then manage their GTIN, their global trade item number, which is also referred to as a UPC, sometimes barcode, but they could manage all of the product attributes to it, and this is the database that then shares it to that larger global registry platform that where those retailers and marketplaces do their validations. So it's the tool that helps manage it, that data. But then from there on out, they could view their cart, they could add a couple more GTINs if you want 1, 2, or 3. There's really no limit, though we do recognize that if you have more than 9, maybe you do want to go for the prefix route. But then after that, you go through a traditional checkout process. I'm assuming some people will be continuing as a new GS1 customer, and this is a traditional e-commerce kind of process. Enter your company name, company information, billing contact, and then payment contact on the next screen. So once that is all filled out, you will actually be issued your GTIN right away. It's in near real time. You'll see it on your screen. Plus, the seller will also get a couple of emails from GS1 US. One will be your receipt for purchase, and then information about your GTIN, and then also information how to log into some of the systems we have for that Data Hub tool and the e-commerce tool, or our account management tool. So pretty simple process, and hopefully it offers sellers an easier option to get their GTINs.
All right, that was a super easy process. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's move on to a bunch of questions. Actually, I have a few questions that I want to ask you as well. These are questions that I see that are commonly asked in my community quite frequently. And then I also polled my community prior to this call, and I got a lot of feedback with questions that they want answered, or they want to ask you as well. So these questions are actually in no particular order. So let's just start with the first one. There's a lot of terminology and phraseology that people get confused over. So what is the difference between a GTIN, UPC, EAN, for example, and which one are you buying, or when you buy it, are you just getting, are they all the same?
That is a very good question. We do hear and use a lot of those same terms, and they all can mean the same thing, but there are very different usages of them. So let me go through them for you. A GTIN, which stands for a Global Trade Item Number, that is actually the unique identifier, the string of numbers that is associated to a product. Now there are multiple types of GTINs, but the most common used ones are either the GTIN 12, which is a 12-digit identifier, and that usually is what is encoded into a UPC barcode. That is also commonly used as a UPC. That is the common identifier used in the US market. And then there's the GTIN 13, which is a 13-digit identifier. And that is also referred to as the European Article Number, or the EAN, and that is commonly used in Europe and other areas outside of the US market. Now, the identifiers, the actual string of numbers, is what GS1 issues to our members, and then those identifiers get encoded into a barcode. So the barcode is actually the symbology that could be read by a machine. So those little lines that you see on your package, that's the barcode. But a lot of people intermingle the term barcode with the string of numbers, that identifier, that GTIN. So GTIN, UPC, barcode, all mean some similar meanings, but they do have very distinct differences when you look at it from a GS1 standards perspective.
But from the end user perspective, it really doesn't matter, right? When they go and make that purchase, whatever they're getting from the GS1 is what they're going to use on their product and on Amazon, right?
Correct. They are going to get the identifier, so that GTIN, that number, and that's the first box that you enter when you go to sell a product
Right.
or list a product is what's your product ID, and then you put in that GTIN. Now, on the Amazon platform, they have GTIN, EAN, and UPC. When you get your identifiers from GS1 US, we issue the 12-digit, so we issue the GTIN 12 or the UPC identifier. If you get your identifiers from another GS1 member organization, say like GS1 UK, GS1 France, GS1 Brazil, they will issue a 13-digit, so that will be the EAN. The GTIN on the Amazon platform is actually the GTIN 14, and that is a 14-digit identifier, which is used for higher level packaging. So if you do a case of something versus a single unit, standards can be very confusing.
I would say that makes sense, but I think you might have complicated it for a lot of people. So actually, that leads me to one of my other questions on here is on that product listing, when you go to create it, there's that drop-down menu. I think that what you were alluding to there is you can choose GTIN, UPC, EAN. Which one are you picking based on what you...
Again, it's the number, the string of numbers. So if you have 12 digits, pick UPC. If it's 13 digits, it's an EAN. A lot of people will have, for that GTIN, put 2 zeros in the front or 3 zeros in the front for that 14 digit. But technically, it should be either the UPC or the EAN.
Right.
And again, if you're coming from the US market, it's UPC.
Right. Makes sense. So in what scenario would they choose GTIN? I think that's the very first option on that dropdown.
That is a 14 digit, and that is intended for upper level packaging, or so if you have a case of something versus an each. So there's some different ways you identify your products with that 14 digit versus the 12 digit.
Right. Makes sense.
That's a whole nother course.
We'll have to have you on again as a guest. Right. I don't think people really care. They just want their listing to go through and have everything work. So yeah.
Check the UPC.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody too. Just pick UPC or EAN. So, all right. So moving on. Let's see here. So, okay. So kind of what we talked about just a second ago. If you're buying, when you go to purchase it, does it matter what country you're in or what marketplace you plan to sell in, which barcode you're buying and where to buy it from, whether it's the GS1 US or the GS1 UK or wherever?
Another great question. When one of the GS1 member organizations issues these identifiers, they are globally unique. So they could be used in any global market. So technically, if you come to the GS1 US, your UPCs that you get from GS1 US can be used in other markets. You can use them in Europe, you can use them in Latin America, and rightfully so, if you get your UPCs or your EANs from GS1 UK, you could use them in the US. The main thing to consider is where do you want your local language support and your local membership support. So if you are somebody who resides in the UK, you would most likely want to get your license, your prefixes, and your EANs from GS1 UK because you get local support. Like in the US, you would want to get local US support. So it just depends on where you want to get your support from and local language support. If you think of Amazon and on their selling platforms, you could use your UPC and you could use it on the Amazon US platform, and that UPC can also be used on the Amazon UK platform, the Amazon Brazil platform. That same identifier could be used across their various selling platforms.
Right. So, yeah, that's kind of what I tell my community too. I just thought of a question that's not on my list, but I do remember some people bringing up buying barcodes from different countries having different prices. Is that...
Each GS1 member organization has their own business model, so we are not aligned across the different member organizations. So you would have to contact your local GS1 office for those.
Okay. Everybody's pinching, so they're always looking for the best prices for every aspect of their business. So, okay. Now, I know you went through the process of buying those barcodes on the website. Now, do you need to have a registered business to buy one, or can you be just an individual?
From GS1 US, you do not have to have a registered business. You could be an individual to license your GTINs or your prefix. We don't do any checks on that.
Okay, and so in that case, what would you enter for your brand um, when it asks you that? You just make something up or use
So
your...
again, the guidance is the brand is the brand that is on your product. So what would be listed on your product or what's on your packaging, that would be your brand name. If it is the same as your company name, then they could be the same, but it is meant to be the brand that is on your actual product.
Okay, and then along that same line, are you able to change that in the future? So let's say I purchase it and entered one thing, but then I decide to change the name later. Am I able to do that?
So we do have some GTIN management rules out there that follows a standard process. If your product is already in market and has been listed on the selling platform, and then you decide to change your brand, you would need a new GTIN assigned to that. So that is the recommendation from the standard. To change your GTIN or change your brand name on an already existing GTIN does not follow the standards.
Right. So as long as you haven't actually used it yet, you're okay. You can change it. Right.
Correct. It has to be not manufactured, not in market.
Right. Okay. So the original $250 was for 10 barcodes, correct? So now you can buy individual barcodes for $30. So how many of those can you buy? Is there a limit?
There is no limit. So you could buy as many as you want. But again, at the price point of $30, if you do need more than 10, that prefix base is actually more cost effective. You will get charged the annual renewal fee, but it is more cost effective for that bundle to get your 10 pack or whatnot. So it just depends on how much money you want to spend up front versus if you do want to pay that recurring fee each year to keep your GTINs active.
Right. So just to clarify, if you do buy a single barcode for the $30, there's no annual fee. But if you buy the bundle for $250, there is a $50 recurring annual fee. Right. Okay. Okay. So when you buy these barcodes, do you have to use them right away, or can they sit there until you decide to use it in the future?
That's another good question. You do not need to use them right away. So they are reserved for your business. If you came to us and licensed, say, 3 single GTINs, but you only went to market with one, those 2 are yours. And you could then use them in a year or 2. So if you're planning on expanding your business or launching additional product line, they could be used when you are ready to. Same with the prefix or that capacity base. You don't need to use all 10. You could use 2 or 3, and then if you grow your business, then you have that capacity to add more GTINs when it's time.
Perfect. Okay, and this is a question that actually came in this morning. She's a Canadian seller, and she says that she can't buy the single barcodes in Canada.
GS1 US has the single GTIN offering. So that again, I showed you the GS1US.org site. GS1 Canada has their own business model, so she'd have to contact the Canadian office.
Right. So she could just buy it from GS1 US with, there's no issue doing that, right?
Correct.
She doesn't have to buy from Canada.
Correct. We don't have any regulations on from which country a seller could come to us. They could come to us from any country.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, we went over that one already. Okay, so here's one kind of related. So how does Amazon actually verify these GS1 barcodes? Because their policy says that they recommend you buy directly from GS1 and not use third-party barcodes. But even when I started selling on Amazon, I originally used third-party barcodes, and I think a lot of people still do. So how does Amazon actually verify that? And are you familiar with how they do that, or if they actually verify?
they do. So they've had language on their site, on their seller support site for a while. They've also just released an announcement on their seller announcement site too. They use the GS1 database of prefix information. It is a public version is what we call GPIR, GEPIR. You'll see that on the US website, also on any other GS1 website, but it essentially has that prefix license information. So what they do is take that prefix and or a single GTIN, and they match it with the company name just to ensure that they are issued from GS1 and not a third party. So this is where it's really important to any new listing, they'll do some validation that their algorithms are proprietary, but I do know they use that information to do some checks and ensure that it is, matches the prefix license.
Makes sense. Okay, so that kind of follow up on that question. Over the last few months, there's been two common errors when creating a product listing, and the errors that pop up are the 5461 and the 5665 error. One's for brand registry, and the other one is for an invalid UPC that doesn't match. And a common problem is when people are actually buying directly from GS1, so they're actually getting the official barcodes, but they're still getting this barcode, invalid barcode error. And what I've been recommending is just to wait 24 or 48 hours, and that usually clears that problem. Is that something that's happening on the GS1 side or Amazon side, or is it something else that's creating this problem?
It's not a GS1 side. So what we do recommend is if a seller comes to us and license their GTIN, it usually takes they say about 2 to 3 days for that information to get into their systems for the validations. So sometimes if you get an eager seller, we do also issue a GTIN certificate or a prefix certificate that can also be submitted to seller support. I don't know how successful that is. We've heard that is one way if you want to bypass that 24, 72-hour waiting period. But generally, it does take a couple of days for that information to get into their systems.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, kind of along that too, the store name or your brand name that you enter for the GTIN, do they check that too for brand registry, or is that just strictly on Amazon side?
That is an Amazon check. So they don't check against the brand information that is entered into the GS1 Data Hub tool. They do check that against brand registry. So that is their own proprietary check.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so let's see here.
Good question.
Yes, there was quite a few. So when
we do see a lot of questions come in from sellers about brand registry. Just another thing on that is sometimes the seller will think that they need to change their company name associated to their prefix to their brand, but that doesn't make sense, especially if you get larger sellers that have multiple brand names. So the company name associated to your prefix or your GTIN needs to be your company name. That brand name is really the brand name on your product, and that's managed through Amazon's brand registry. So
right, that makes sense. Hope that clarified that for a lot of people out there. Now, some people are still turning to the third-party barcodes, even though I've actually made a couple of videos about the lower price point now. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages or problems if they still continue to use a third party versus buying from GS1? Can you give any advice on that?
The only advice I really can say is, it's your own business decision. So it's, as you set up your business and set up your packaging and you use non-GS1 issued identifiers, the risk that you have is possibly being required to or asked to put on a GS1 identifier, so a GS1 GTIN or a barcode. You also have to consider if you're going to sell into other channels. So not just Amazon, but if you want to grow your business and go into other retail channels, many other retail channels require or request, I hate that word, have strong trading partner agreements around using GS1 identifiers. So I always think or recommend that as you look at your business and how you want to grow it, understand where you may want to grow it, what other retail channels, and look at what they may be required to, because going with the GS1 GTIN or prefix option might be the better business decision for you long term.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think a lot of the confusion might be because these third parties are advertising their barcodes as official GS1. So are they getting them from you, or where do these third party barcodes, where are they coming from, and how are they able to claim that they're official GS1?
The only comment I can say there is that we do not work with any other third parties for issuance. So if a seller doesn't come to GS1, then I would question the authenticity.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Okay, and I think you touched on this earlier. So sometimes if people have problems, for example, they used a third-party barcode originally and they want to be official and switch over to a GS1, are they able to do that? And I think earlier you said we already touched on changing the brand name on the barcode, but as far as the Amazon listing is concerned, are they able to do that?
They are. So this is an area where Amazon is still working through, because they are getting stricter with their GTIN requirements. So if you did, or if you are now changing over because you want to license or identify your products with the GS1 GTIN, then they do have a process for that. It is sometimes not as smooth as we would like it. Sometimes seller support can do it. If seller support has a hard time managing it, we do have an avenue through the GS1 US member support team to help with that. But technically, seller support should be able to help sellers be able to do that. But we find sometimes it's a little tricky. But they do accept that GTIN changeover.
Okay, perfect. So all of you guys, if you want to switch, you do have an option to do that.
It gets complicated if you do fulfilled by Amazon and you have inventory in stock.
Yeah, and you got to switch everything.
There's a whole bunch of scenarios that could be a whole nother podcast.
No kidding. This can go on for a while. So, okay. Well, thank you, Michelle. I think we covered a lot of questions today. I appreciate you taking time to do that. And thanks for sharing the news and updates. And I think a lot of people will take advantage of that lower price point for their products on Amazon. Did you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to share?
We always have information and resources at GS1 US. We do have a YouTube channel. GS1 US YouTube channel has a lot of short videos too that help sellers kind of demystify the standards, because we do know that they are somewhat complicated sometimes. So there are a lot of resources available to help sellers if they need some more support. And then, of course, our member support team, info@gs1us.org, can help out a lot too.
Perfect. And that's open to anybody in the world, right? You don't have to live in the US or anything like that.
Open to GS1 US members.
Members, right. Okay, I'll make sure to post links to everything we discussed in the video description below, so you can find any information that you're looking for there. If you want to join my community, I'll have links to my Facebook group in the video description as well. If you found value in this video, consider subscribing and make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does help me out, and it gets this content out to more people just like you that are looking for information on how to grow their business. All right, so thanks, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure everybody here got some mass value from that, and I hope to have you on as a guest again in the future, because if you have any questions too, make sure to post them in the comment section and I'll forward them on to you too, Michelle, if they're related. Cool?
Glad to help out.
Great. And we'll catch you next time.